Hello, dear friends. Here we are, 40 Nights with the Master, day or night 36, and it's the Slave of the Heart. That's the title we gave because we're going to study chapter 2 of a new book that was psychographed by Chico Xavier and written by the spirit Humberto de Campos, or Brother X. Okay, and this is chapter 2 in the book Lázaro Rede Vivo, published by the Brazilian Spiritist Federation, yet to be in English, but coming about in many of its chapters. Okay, did you know this is the 100th broadcast we've been doing for the last less than 5 months? Yes, 100. Yuppie! Yes, it's a joy and it's an opportunity for us to learn together. After all, these 40 nights are a parallel to what many Christians are in these days fasting about. 40 days. It's what we call the Lent. 40 days in which we recall the 40 days Jesus went to the desert before he came back to the public life to give us the last and ultimate teachings. And the ultimate teaching is that one in that picture just behind me, which is, Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they're doing. And this is us. We often don't know what we're doing. We often make mistakes because we don't know. We need to know, and that's why we're here together, to get to know the laws of life. The faster and the deeper we know about it, the less mistakes, and the less mistakes, the happier we'll be. Yes, the happier we'll be. Shall we, friends? Chapter 2, book Lázaro Rede Vivo, by the spirit author Brother X, and thus the slave of the Lord. Before we go into the beautiful lesson, and be prepared, I know it's Friday. If you're watching this on demand, rejoice. But for those who are live, it's Friday evening for some of us on the East Coast, and for others beginning of the night, the evening on the West Coast, morning for some friends on the South Hemisphere, and afternoon, maybe possibly, if they are more east than us in the West, right? Wild West. Wild West. Let us tame this wilderness so we can get our hearts meek and peacemaking. Shall we? Yes. We're gonna say hi to our beautiful community, without which we wouldn't be here. Hello, Sol. How are you? Shining, huh? Shiny. Talking about shiny, sunshine. Hello, sunshine. How are you? Ceisa, beautiful flower of our tri-state area. I will say this way, right? Because of the connections, the whole network. Lea Severo, beautiful friend. Thank you, Carol Correa, I just saw it. The app is working. Kardec Radio's app is working and available to you. If you don't have Facebook, don't want to use it, don't worry. We are on YouTube, and also we're here at Kardec Radio's app, kardecradio.com as well. And Adilson, beautiful bridge, bridging up people, right? Valéria Benfica, how are you? Beautiful Brazil here present. Solange, how are you? Solange. And Rihanna, how is our beautiful South Africa? By the way, Rihanna, somebody today wrote to Kardec Radio from Brazil telling that they are traveling to South Africa. They wanted to know where you guys were for the possibility of even bringing books directly to you. So share with me later on the inbox, like the precise address. I'm not too worried about the address now because we're gonna send it after July, though we're receiving lots of them. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I know Leia Severo's donations coming through. Katia has already donated. We have other friends who we mentioned already. Andrea Torres, how are you? And Angelita, beautiful Angelita too. Thank you, Andrea, for the loving kisses. Ready? But have your tissue around. I tell you, this story is deep. And Rudy kindly, thank you, Rudy, is kindly reminding us of, before I go to, I want to mention what Rudy is saying. Thank you, Rudy. Today is March 31st. Very meaningful date for two reasons. March 31st in Hydesville in 1848 actually happened to be the location in which the Fox sisters heard firsthand of the spirit manifestations, right? Charles Rosna was there in spirit form trying to communicate. And from there on, the whole world started paying attention to spirit phenomena. Kardec, 160 years later, 160 years ago, 9 years after that night, for the Fox sisters in upstate New York, Kardec published the Spirit's book, Discarnated in 1869. And he published a book on April 18th, 1857. So here we have, not by chance, and thank you, Rudy, precisely in parallel to the time in which Jesus is getting to the desert, and then out of it, and then Easter comes. After the appearance of Jesus, we have the publishing of the Spirit's book. And I'm saying this in different time points on the history of humankind, but talking about specifically this springtime on the earth that is very meaningful for us. Spiritism was planted as a seed that was blossoming precisely on springtime, during springtime. Okay? Inspired? Ready? But think about this. Think about the mother of Jesus right now. We'll be back with this comment about Kardec, his discarnation March 31st, 1869, the Fox sisters, the publishing of the Spirit's book, and the story we're gonna hear now. True account. Brother X says, when John, the beloved disciple, came to see Mary, announcing the Master's arrest, his mother's heart was in dismay. She then resorted to the sanctuary of prayer and begged the Supreme Lord to spare his beloved son. Was not Jesus the divine ambassador? Hadn't she received the notification of the angels concerning his heavenly condition? Her beloved son had been born for the salvation of the oppressed. He would elevate the name of Israel. He would be a different king, full of loving power. He healed the lepers, raised the paralytics without hope. Had not Lazarus' resurrection, already buried, raised Jesus to the summit of glorification? These were thoughts in Mary's mind. And Mary entrusted to the God of mercy her worries and supplications, awaiting God's providence. However, John returned in brief hours to tell that the Messiah had been imprisoned. The Blessed Mother returned to prayer in silence. In tears, she begged a favor to the Heavenly Father. She would trust him. She wanted to face the situation fearlessly, seeking the authorities in Jerusalem. But humble and poor, what would she get from the powerful ones on earth? And did she not count on the protection of heaven? Certainly, the God of infinite kindness, whom her Son had revealed to the world, would save him from prison, restoring him to freedom. Mary remained vigilant, departing from the modest house where she was secluded. She gained the street and tried to get into the jail. Yet she could not touch the hearts of the guards. Late at night, Mary watched, entreated, between anguished and confident. Later, John came back, communicating to her the new difficulties that had arisen. The Master had been accused by the priests. He was alone, and Pilate, the Roman administrator, hesitating between the provisions of the law and the demands of the people, had sent the Master to Herod's consideration. Mary could not contain herself. She would follow Jesus closely. Resolutely, she took shelter in a discreet mantle and returned to the streets, multiplying the prayers to heaven in her maternal distress. Of course, God would change events by touching the soul of Antipas. She wouldn't doubt it for a moment. What had her son done to receive those affronts? Hadn't he worshipped the law? Hadn't he spread sublime consolations? Supported by the converted from Magdala, Mary reached the neighborhoods of the Tritarchal Palace. All infinite bitterness. Jesus had been clad in a cloak of irony, and he wore a scepter-like rod in his hands. As if that was not enough, Jesus had also been crowned with thorns. She wanted to get closer in order to free him from his bloody forehead and pull him out of the painful situation. But her son, serene and resigned, gave her the most meaningful look of all her existence. She understood that he induced her to prayer, and in silence, Jesus asked her to trust the Father. She contained herself, but followed Jesus in tears, praying for divine intervention. It was impossible for the Father not to manifest himself. Was not his Son the chosen one for salvation? Wasn't he the light of Israel, the sublime revealer? She remembered his childhood supported by the angels. She had the impression that the shining star which had announced his birth still shone in the sky. The crowd suddenly stopped. The march was interrupted so that the Roman governor could pronounce himself. Mary was confident. Who knows? The moment of God's order has arrived. The Supreme Lord could directly inspire the judge of the cause. After long anxieties, and hold on a second, let me get a little cable here, just a second. Okay, and after long anxieties, Pontius Pilate, in an extreme effort to save the accused, invited the Pharisee mob to choose between Jesus, the divine benefactor, and Barabbas, the bandit. The people would be speaking, and the people owed many blessings to her beloved son. How would one equate the Father's messenger with the cruel malefactor whom everyone knew? The crowd, however, manifested, asking for freedom for Barabbas and the crucifixion for Jesus. Oh, thought the tormented mother, where is the Eternal One that does not hear my prayers? Where are the angels who spoke to me in illuminated promises? In copious tears, Mary saw her son bow to the weight of the cross. He walked with difficulty, a trembling body by the blows that he had received, obeying the natural instinct. Mary came forward to offer him assistance. The soldiers who surrounded the divine prisoner, however, contained her. Anguished, she suddenly remembered Abraham. Once, the generous patriarch, moved by the voice of God, had led the beloved son to sacrifice. Isaac followed innocently, torn with pain at Jehovah's recommendation. But then, in the last instant, the Lord determined otherwise, and the Father of Israel had returned to the domestic sanctuary in sovereign triumph. Certainly, the compassionate God heard her supplications and reserved her equal joy. Jesus would descend from Calvary victoriously to her love, continuing the apostolate of redemption. However, painfully surprised, she saw him hoisted on the cross among thieves. Oh, the terrible anguish of that hour! Why hadn't the mighty Father heard her? What had happened not to deserve the blessing? Disheartened, wounded, Mary heard the voice of her son, commending her to the care of John, the faithful companion. Humiliated, she registered his last words. But when the sublime head fell limp, Mary recalled the angel's visit before the divine Christmas. In marvelous retrospect, she heard the heavenly salute. Mysterious strength was bestowed upon her spirit. Yes, Jesus was her son, yet, first of all, he was the messenger of God. She possessed human desires, but the Supreme Lord kept eternal and unfathomable intentions. Her maternal affection could suffer, however, the celestial will rejoiced. There could be tears in her eyes, but they would shine victorious feasts in the kingdom of God. Apparently, she pleaded in vain, but indeed, the Almighty had answered her pleas, not according to her mother's longings, but according to the divine plans. It was then that Mary, understanding the perfection, the mercy, and the justice of the Father's will, she knelt before the cross and, looking at her dead son, repeated the unforgettable affirmations, "Lord, here's your servant. Let it be to me according to your word." This is the top of the cherry when we talk about the teachings and the promised consoler. This chapter today is the number one. Why? Because it's the ultimate surrender. How often, for much less, we are distraught and we think God is not listening to us. But who amongst us on the earth, men and women, can compare any suffering to the suffering of the Blessed Mother? Who? No one. No one on the earth has ever had a child so sublime. Though every child is sublime, this child is above and beyond. Never had anything wrong. Never, no problems at all. On the contrary, Jesus brought light before he was born. He continued to shine after his discarnation. And how could a mother understand the sufferings? Are you suffering? Of course. Any and all of us on the earth, if we know us well, we have anguishes in our hearts. We do. And that's human. But the question is, either we face it like Mother Mary. See her courage? She couldn't understand the behind the scenes. But she knew she was so faithful to God that she literally loved God above all things. The greatest and most important commandment of all. She loved God so much that she was able to obey and not be rebellious against the will of God. How do we achieve that level of experience of the heart? What we call in the Gospel according to Spiritism, the consent of the heart, we call it surrender or resignation. Where are you? It's a therapeutic conversation. Where are you? Like the Blessed Mother, in a scale 0 to 10, she achieved 10. How do we get there, right, Carol Correa? Hello, Constance. Hello, Monica. Hello, Margaret. So how do we get there? By asking daily what God wants us to do. Daily, all the time. And that's not fanaticism. Fanaticism is blinding us to the empathy of others. But when we have God inside of us, we're truly altruistic. And that's not fanaticism. But we need to ask God, God, what do you want me to do? To the benefit of all. And He's often going to tell us, pay attention to the people right there in front of you and ask yourself, what can I do to help them now? Not to people who are elsewhere, but now, where you are. Where you are. So if you are with your family right now, look around and listen to God saying, how can you help them now? Not tomorrow, now. Maybe stop thinking of your needs and how they're going to serve you so you can serve them. How I can, instead of expecting that they are going to do something for me, that I need to do something for them, to them. How can I do this? That's fulfillment of God's will. Jesus was always mindful, but the courage of this woman is unsurpassing. She couldn't understand. And I'm not going to say just like us, but Humberto de Campos is describing what was happening in her mind to see that though she was the Blessed Mother, she was in the human position like we are, asking, why? Why? What can I do? But she was cautious, which is very important. She was not suicidal. Because some people, in the name of love, they commit true suicide. And that's actually in the book Heaven and Hell by Kardec. A mother who said she loved her son so much and the son was sick. She was seeing him in the last minutes of his life. And she said, son, I'm gonna be there for you before you get there. And he thought she was speaking, figuratively speaking. She said, I'll be right back. She went to the other room and killed herself. She thought she was gonna be on the other side of life, waiting for him to go to the spiritual realm in this incarnation. And she came back in one of Kardec's meetings and said, till now, I don't know where my son is. She was not able to visit her son or be with him because she didn't follow through the major commandment. Love God above everything, everyone, everything meaning the temporary roles in life. Right? Hello, hello, Maria Graziele, Grazi, how are you? So it's a question for us. And she was suffering. But look, when she gets close to Jesus, what does he do? He gave her the most meaningful look. And we keep repeating this. We need to train ourselves how to emanate vibratory messages consciously. Some people, they are in need of talking to explain. But the mentor, Joseph, always says, Vanessa, sometimes the best explanation is not to explain. The best way of teaching is not to say. The best way to actually help somebody is to be in silence. But vibrating the message from the heart. And that can be seen in the look, posture, gestures. For that to happen, we need to stop using masks. Do you use masks? Jesus didn't use masks. But if I use masks, I won't be able to express what I need to express. Because the mask is masking it. In order to be sharp, we need to stop using masks. And what do? Be transparent, but kind. But transparent. You know that balance that Jesus shows? The firmness with kindness? He was not totally understood and accepted even by his disciples. So don't illude yourself that the minute you step there, people are going to love you because they want. And if you try pleasing them like majority of people try to do, I tell you, yet you're not going to be able to fulfill what you need to fulfill. Because you're not reborn to please people. You're reborn to learn and to serve, but not to please, but God. Are you a people pleaser? Scale 0 to 10? Not for me, don't tell me. But to you, let me think for myself too, a minute for both of us, all of us. Let us think. Am I a people pleaser? Scale 0 to 10. 0 being like, no, not at all. 10, oh yeah. Where are you? People pleaser. And I'm saying people pleaser with the mask. But not like really kindness. It's just like, afraid of not being accepted, afraid of being rejected, afraid of being criticized. And then you don't do what you have to do. How many spouses skip a religious meeting, whether in a spiritist center, or at a church, or at a synagogue, or anywhere, a religious temple, because their spouse does not agree? I remember when I started dating Carlos, I said, Carlos, you know me as a spiritist and an active spiritist. I'm not gonna lie to you. Spiritism is my top priority. Working for the dissemination of it. If we want to be together, you're invited to be on this boat. If you don't want to, we'll be friends, but we won't tie the knot. That's it. Very sincerely. Very sincerely. Never lie to anybody. We need to be kind, but do to others what we'd like to receive. Do you like when people pretend to please you because they are afraid of you not approving of them? Wouldn't you rather prefer that they be sincere, honest with you, and tell you what they want instead of going around and, telling stories and like children who are afraid of the parents and they are like, no. Be courageous and tell what you want to do and face the consequences. And that's okay. Right, Tanya? And Greg? Clara Simões. Oh, okay. You please because you're afraid to hurt. Do you think Jesus did that, Clara? He's our guide and model. Do you think? Do you think he ever taught us to please not to hurt us? In all the passages we've read this far, I'm going to give you an example. The other day, Simon Peter was expecting Jesus to arrive and give him special tasks. 3 needy people knocked at Peter's door, and Peter was rude and rough, expelling them and pushing them away. And